What is going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another transfer update. A lot to get through today, and we're also going to be giving our transfer window predictions, which you probably want to look away now, to be honest. But
based off one interview with Frank, we've already decided who we're going to sign and who we're not going to sign.
Exactly, and all will be revealed a bit later on in the stream. But big up to each and every one of you in the chat with us right here, right now. I can see Jack Dinner is very excited for this stream.
Very
so
excited. Big up.
We better not keep him waiting any longer, and we better get straight into the Tottenham update. So first up, we're going to talk about Mohammed Kudus. We heard yesterday from The Guardian, it was actually in like the transfer rumour section, that Spurs are looking to make a 50 million bid that West Ham will probably reject out of hand. They never said that, but they are looking for around 85 million or just under, which is his release clause. Ex-West Ham employee, who is a West Ham ITK and a very reliable one, to be fair, says that Tottenham are the latest club to join the race for Kudus, with Daniel Levy making an inquiry into the evaluation of the Ghanaian international. The club are reluctant to sell at the moment. The inquiries that Spurs have made are thought to be around £50 million, are not near what West Ham would deem an acceptable amount. The release clause is thought to be around £85 million, and West Ham may consider slightly less. Jacob Steinberg also came in and said that Chelsea and Manchester United are two of the clubs interested in Kudus. I mean, I really think, like, for what we're looking for in terms of a winger, versatile, I do think he's a really good fit and near perfect, to be honest. I think he's top quality. Yes, he didn't have his best season of his career last year, but I don't think that should change opinion on him as a player. 85 million being that release clause, and he's an ex-West Ham employee saying they might consider slightly less. If it's like 75, 80, I mean, I think that's actually a deal that Spurs should do.
What, 80 million for him?
Like 75 million, yeah.
I think it's high.
If you're spending 65 million on like Richarlison and Solanke, then surely Kudus is worth 10 million more than that.
If you're paying 60 mark, yeah, I hear you. Obviously, Eze's there for 68, but then we can't pay in installments. Whoever Tottenham feel like paying the extra bit of money, but in installments for Kudus is more worth their time. I don't know, but I really like Kudus. I think very versatile as well. Great ability to retain the ball in deep tight areas with players coming at him. He's very strong. Got a great left foot. I think when he gets into those positions in and around the penalty box, gets a lot of power on his shots. I think he does kind of have to add another finish with a bit of finesse. I don't see him kind of finessing too often. Kind of does like those arrow kind of shots, like arrowing into the corner, very straight, whereas maybe he could offer a bit more range to finishing. But I really like him. I think he adds a bit of a profile we don't have, someone who just like you can trust to get the ball and drag you up the pitch without too much problem. And I think he's got levels to go up. He did have a very poor season last season. I do think sometimes as well, can he be a bit guilty of being too selfish? Is that just because he's at West Ham where he feels like he needs to do more by himself? Is that why maybe he tries to do too much by himself and ends up getting caught?
We've seen it in an Ajax shirt and a Ghana shirt as well, in terms of, you know, he does like to keep hold of on the ball for too long. But I mean, I think he's probably the best, or definitely in the top 5 dribblers in the league. Yeah,
he's not one who's going to like do loads of well, I guess, yeah, he is actually to do loads of flicks and tricks, but he's not like going to do loads of pirouettes and things. He usually just relies on his physical traits, and they're usually so good that he's just tough to get off the ball. It's kind of similar to Dembele. Why I describe him similar to Dembele, because like, you know, Dembele is going to do that chop and just get past you. And it's similar to Kudus. You know what he's going to do, but it's just so hard to stop because he's stronger and faster than you against most defenders. 85 million, I don't think we're going to get anywhere near, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't think
now, if it's a bit less, 75 million, obviously, I think you got Eze there. I think you can get Semenyo for a lot cheaper than that. Even Mbeumo, they're talking about 70 million. So I don't think he would be first choice. Now, if Mbeumo goes to United, if Eze, there's no wiggle room on the paying up front thing, and we don't want to do that whatsoever. And if Semenyo, they're going to be stubborn on that 70 million figure, then I think you're looking at Kudus thinking, pay an extra 5 million and there's a deal to be done there. Whether West Ham hold out for more money because it's us rather than maybe a Man United or an Arsenal or someone else, that is another factor as well. I don't see Man United going for Mbeumo and him. I think it's got to be an alternative. I find it very hard to believe Man United are going to be serious about both of them. Arsenal, are they really going to splash that amount of money on us back up to Saka?
No, but the thing is with Kudus, he can play a various amount of roles. He won't just be a backup to Saka.
Yeah, I guess, because he's also got Odegaard there. I just find it hard to believe they're going to splash that amount of money. I'll be impressed if they do, and that will show real ambition and intent. I just find it hard to believe they would. But look, maybe I could be proved wrong. Chelsea, I find it, you never know with Chelsea. I guess you never know. You think they got enough players, and then they just out of nowhere splash a big amount of money on a player you think they're well stocked in. So
well, they are going for a winger. It's clear to see that with Gittins. They're clearly chasing Gittins, potentially trying to get Noni Madueke out the door. So, I mean, there could be a space for him.
That's at half. Gittins at half the price of Kudus.
Yeah,
so
I don't think that comes into Chelsea's thinking.
So, I think when it comes to whether, if we put our hat in the ring, we've got a good chance of getting him, I think we probably do in terms of convincing him to come here ahead of other clubs. But
Newcastle are after him as well.
Yeah, Newcastle, that's one I can, if they're willing to spend that money, there's just a real immediate place in the team for him. They don't really have a right winger. I mean, they got Murphy, but obviously they need an upgrade there, and he really just fits in so well, probably with Newcastle. So there would be a one I'll be quite worried about. I would love Kudus. I just find it hard to believe we're going to sign him for 75 million. But if we're talking about signing one big player in that position, and I think he should be in our thinking for sure.
Oh yeah, I think he should be, but I just don't look. As much as I want him here, as much as I think he's a better fit for us than an Mbeumo, than a Semenyo, I just can't see a deal being done here. First of all, West Ham are not going to deal with us, and we're not going to, go that extra mile. The way Spurs think about it is probably like, look, if we can get these players for a bit cheaper, then let's go for them. So even though Kudus is probably the better fit for what we need, in my opinion. So yeah, I find it highly unlikely. I was just talking that if the decision was up to me, I probably would spend that extra 5-10 million and get someone like Kudus in.
And also, I guess there's a bit of a nagging doubt when it comes to spending a big fee on him, just because Semenyo and Mbeumo, Eze off the back of quite strong seasons, whereas he's had quite a bad season. And I know that shouldn't come into thinking, but it always does when you're looking to spend big money on a player like that. So I think when they're looking, assessing things, they're like, he's off a bad season. Is there a reason for that? You've got to analyse the reasons why he's had a bad season. But also that's got to come into thinking when you're looking to part way with 75 million, that he has just had a poor season. Is that going to continue, or is he going to get back to levels that we saw when he first joined West Ham?
Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. Next up, let's talk about Eberechi Eze, as Graham Bailey says that Tottenham are still very keen on Eberechi Eze. New manager Thomas Frank has expressed an interest, and he has a release clause of £60 million. And I think that includes +8 in bonuses.
Yeah, and we've heard about this release clause for a while. Obviously, he had a release clause last summer, which we were heavily linked with activating, and now it's increased. I love Eze.
Just before you move on, there's just been another update on Mohammed Kudus, and Ben Jacobs says that Tottenham are, in fact, considering a big move for Mohammed Kudus.
Well, Ben Jacobs, I have to say, he's gotten better recently, I think, with his sources. He seems to be getting a few things ahead of the game than beforehand, where I felt like about maybe a year ago or 6 months ago, he's just regurgitating other things. But he seems to be actually getting a lot better. So now he's saying that. That's very interesting. Look, if we're serious, I'll be delighted. But I think there's just a lot of moving parts to this deal.
We've heard it all before. It all before. I'll only believe it when it starts getting to a proper advanced stage. But look, back on Eze, what were you saying?
Yeah, we know about this release clause. He had a release clause last summer, which was less than what it is now. I wonder how much this Palace European place might come into effect, if they lose it or not. How much that is going to mean how much more desperate he is to leave, because he needs, at his stage of his career, I don't think he's ever had a season in Europe, has he, in his career? So
Eze?
Yeah.
No, it's Palace's first year.
Yeah, so he needs to be playing European football. He needs to try himself out at that level. If Palace are going to be there, that's one thing. Even then, he might think Champions League, but maybe he can be convinced, I can spend another year here. But if they're not in Europe, If they get kicked out, which, apparently another club this year, I think from Ireland, Droghead, they were in a similar situation, and
Is it not confirmed that they're in Europe next season?
Not yet.
I thought it was.
No, it's not confirmed yet. I think it's looking likely they are, but there was an Irish team called Droghead who were in a similar situation, and UEFA rejected their appeal. So if that is kind of precedent for the Palace situation, that's not great. We'll have to wait and see. They might still be fine. Maybe they will. I think the talk at the moment is they will be fine if there's some manoeuvring with the ownership. Anyway, regardless of that, I think Eze would be a phenomenal player for us. I think he needs to be trying himself at a better level. We know that. I know Palace are going places under Glasner. They've done brilliantly ever since he's come in. They've won an FA Cup. So by no means is he a for sure thing for leaving, but I also think that he's now regular in the England squad. He's seeing his teammates playing regular Champions League football, playing regular European football. He needs to be at that level. And maybe if he comes to Tottenham, raises his own profile, all these different things, he knows what a good move it could be for him. It's whether we'd be willing to activate this release clause, or whether there's any movement with Palace, or they're going to be stubborn with it like they were last summer.
I think the whole Palace playing in European football, I think I don't think it's relevant, to be honest. And I think that if a big club were to slap the money down on the table, putting Palace in a position where they have to accept because it's a release clause, I think he'll be more than open to move to any of the Champions League teams or any of the bigger clubs in England. I think, in my mind, in his mind, I think he's ready to move on. I think he was probably ready last summer. He's at that level for sure. He's in the peak of his powers right now. And I think if a big club does slap that money down, he'll go. So I just think that Palace will dig their heels in. We've seen them do it many a time over the past. Like you mentioned yesterday or a couple of days ago, Wilfried Zaha was a key kind of point in case in terms of Palace, being very stubborn in the way they want to do business. Last summer was also a very key way to show that Palace are very stubborn in the way they do business. So a team has to come down and slap 60 million up front. And I just can't see a team doing that right now. That's the problem.
Yeah. I think from my point of view with Eze, with them being, if they are in Europe next season, which is looking likely, is he, yes, I think he'll want to move regardless, but will he force a move if Palace are in Europe, whereas if they're not, maybe he'll feel like he has to force it a bit, and maybe
I don't think he'll force a move regardless. I think he's got the utmost respect for Crystal Palace, to be honest.
I think he might. I think at this stage of his career, you kind of have to be a bit ruthless sometimes, and I think he does have respect for Palace, but he's given them many years of his career, and if they're not in Europe again next season through no fault of his own, or after they won the FA Cup and he scored the winner in the final, that must be a very frustrating situation, and he needs to be playing European football. He's going to be 27 very soon, and football doesn't wait for anyone. So I think he'll look at the Zaha situation actually and think he doesn't want to be a Zaha, to be honest. I don't think he would want that situation. I think he'd want to test himself. But if they got Europe, then I think he's going to be more of the mind, okay, I want to move, but if no one's going to be willing to do what's right in this situation, then look, we've got European football anyway. I can play at that level. But if they drop out, I think he might be feeling, I might have to force this a bit. I might need to tell Palace, look, you've got to negotiate this because I really want to leave.
Yeah, look, even if that is the case, I just don't see much wriggle room in the way Palace would like to do their business. They'll say to him, look, you've signed a contract here until this amount, 2027, and if you want to leave,
so he's got 2 years left.
Huh?
So there's 2 years left.
2 years left, yeah. So if you want to leave, then this club has got to slap this money on the table. If not, give us 1 more year and maybe we'll renegotiate with a year left in your contract.
I didn't realise it was 2 years. I thought it was longer. So that's also not great for Palace, to be honest. If they're looking to get maximum fee, kind of value for him, if he's not going to sign a deal. I don't know if he might have an extension in there. I don't know.
There might be, yeah.
So I don't know exactly. Maybe they're calm about it. But if there's not, then if he wants to leave, they might have to be a bit more open to negotiating.
Yeah, we'll see how it progresses. But at this moment in time, you're only really hearing about tenuous links to Tottenham. No one really else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking. Obviously, anyone would be lucky to have him. There was serious links with City I think, last summer. But
that's not happening now.
That's not happening. They've already signed quite a few players. Arsenal, I mean, they're looking for a guy to replace Martinelli, aren't they? There's a lot of talk about Nico Williams, but he seems to be off to other places. So maybe Arsenal, that kind of would make sense. I mean, United, again, they just signed Cunha in for Mbeumo. I'm just looking at teams who might be looking to spend big money. I think Tottenham are in a good situation, potentially, unless Arsenal are serious about him.
Yeah, it's all about trying to fit him into the squad as well. Obviously, we've brought that kind of situation to you. But look, there's no secret Eze is a top player, and I would absolutely love him at this football club. I really would. He would be one of the first choices I'd go for if it was up to me. I think he's such a delight to watch, can play in various different positions at such a high level, such an exciting player to watch. So if you're listening, Levy, bring him in, mate. Bring him in. Next up, we're going to talk about Bryan Mbeumo. Mbeumo? I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
A lot of people have been not happy with our pronunciations about many players. I don't know. I think it's Mbeumo. Mbeumo now, people are saying.
Duncan Castles says that Mbeumo has not communicated that he wants to join Manchester United. Should both clubs meet the 70 million asking price set by Brentford, then there is a good chance that the forward should choose to reunite with Thomas Frank at Spurs rather than join Manchester United.
It's very interesting. Very interesting. Well, Duncan Castles, I know. I wouldn't say he's like a tier one, but what I do know is when it comes to Man United, he used to have very good links. He used to have very good information from specifically Man United. So whether he's going off those kind of sources, that kind of information, that'll be quite interesting. He's not like more reliable ones like Tom Allnut or Jacob Steinberg, anyone else in that kind of field. But when it comes to Man United, he's known for being quite reliable. So if he's saying that, that's quite interesting about Mbeumo. But obviously, that goes against pretty much what every other journalist is saying, which is everyone is saying pretty much that he has said that Man United is his number one choice and that's where he wants to go. In some other places have even gone as far as to say he's not considering any other option but Man United. So those what they're saying, but he's saying very, very different. I wonder who's true. But for me, like, obviously he's a boyhood Man United fan, but they're not in Europe. They're, as much as he might like the idea of playing for them, if we're very serious about him, and we've got with Thomas Frank here, and we've got Champions League football, so he's immediately on that stage that he wants to be at. Like, surely in his mind that can't be ruled out. Maybe he's just that much of a Man United fan that he wants to go there. But I don't know. Football's not always like that when it comes to being a boyhood fan.
Yeah, look, I think it's not just about the club. You've got to sell a project. It's a career at the end of the day. So, and I feel like once players are professionals, for the most part, they kind of forego their childhood fantasies and supporting, So I don't think it's a full. I mean, I actually think he will end up at Man United.
But who knows? Maybe
just because he's a Man United fan.
Maybe this whole reports from Man United saying he only wants Man United, all this stuff.
Look be.
Is it agent talk? Is it just
it could
not
be.
Agent talk, or is it Man United, themselves putting out there,
could be
trying to make it look like he's only going to Man United thing?
Yeah, to sway other teams off.
It could be. That could be the case as well. And maybe it's not as wrapped up as we think. As I've always said.
And I guess the only guy that would know the real truth is Thomas Frank.
Yeah, and Thomas Frank and Mbeumo himself. As I've always said, it's gone suspiciously quiet with this United to Brentford, Mbeumo to United deal. Until it's signed, until that's agreed or anything, there's always a chance. You can never rule it out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Romano said yesterday that the talks with Brentford and Man United are constant talks, and they're going on every single day. And he says that, I think he did say that he does favour the move to Manchester United. So look, each and every journalist saying something different about this. Majority of them saying, United and because of the supporting when he was younger and all that situation. But look, Duncan Castles has come in, slapped it on the table and said something completely opposite.
Do you think we would be willing to go to 70 million?
Well, the rumours are Darren Lewis said that we already slapped 70 million on the table for him. That. But I don't really believe it. I'm just trying to think, like, you've got him for 70, let's say Semenyo for like 65, or Kudus for around 80, or 75 to 80. I mean, which is the best deal to do?
I think I would still go with Mbeumo just because Frank knows him. He knows his character. He knows how to get the best out of him. He's already got him improving year on year. And I do think he's good enough to kind of adapt to whatever he wants to do with us. And I think he's a player who's been improving every single year in the Premier League. Similar ages to all three of them are. So I think for me, Mbeumo would be the safest bet.
Yeah, I think I would go for Kudus out of the three. I just feel like he's a profile that we just don't have in this squad, and we desperately need someone that can ferociously, just consistently take on his man with good stamina and unbelievable ball carrying and dribbling ability. And I think as well, under Frank, he can make him even better. So I think I would go for Kudus, to be honest. But look, I'll be happy with all three. I'll be happy. I'll go Kudus, Mbeumo, then Semenyo. That would be my like.
And Eze as well in there, I guess, as well. You put out Eze into that.
Yeah. The thing is, Eze's kind of different position though, isn't he? Than all three. Like them three, we really want for the right wing. Eze's not really, specialised on the right wing.
It's true. It would mean maybe, I don't know, moving other players over to the right, depending on obviously Son's future, which we'll get into. But yeah.
Next up, we're going to talk about a player called Xavi Simons, if you've ever heard of him. Ben Jacob says that Tottenham have made an active inquiry for RB Leipzig forward Xavi Simons. So it's gone from an inquiry to an active
inquiry. Fantastic. Again, I would love him. I don't see us going for a Xavi Simons and a Kudus or Semenyo, and he would be a player kind of that mould. Maybe but I can't see us signing him to play on the wing, which would be a bit of a peculiar way to go about it. But he's obviously an attacking midfielder who can obviously play across the front line. He's very versatile, very high quality. But unless like a Decky or a Maddison are leaving, I don't see us signing a Simons to play on the wing. Surely you sign him as a player who can play on the wing, but is predominantly in the centre. You don't sign a Simons to play on the wing. So in terms of squad numbers, I don't see how it works, signing a Simons and a Semenyo, unless we sell a Son and a Richarlison, and then you sign like a Simons and like a winger striker kind of player, something like that. I don't know, but unless we make it work in that way. But I'd love if we can somehow fit him in, and it'd be brilliant. I think he's a phenomenal player, and I think he'd be fantastic for us. But
I think the only way we sign a Simons is if one of Decky or Maddison goes, and I just can't see that happening.
Yeah.
So, let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. A lot of moving parts to all the deals that we're talking about, because anyone that we have in, that we bring in, we need to get rid of like two or three.
I think as well, Decky, I've got a feeling Decky could be used more out wide under Frank.
Potentially.
And if that's the case, if he sees Decky as a wide player and then you got Johnson there, maybe there is room for a Simons potentially.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is a very good point, because you can get rid of, well, not get rid of, because I really hate that term, especially for the player I'm about to mention, but Sonny, if he was to leave, then yeah, you could probably fill that role with a central player if Decky plays out wide. But again, like,
and if you sell Richarlison, then that's where you can put in a winger there or something.
You need a striker if Richarlison's going to leave. Next up, we're going to talk a new player to the Tottenham update, Rafael Onyedika. Sebastian Vidal says that Tottenham are interested in Rafael Onyedika, and he is valued at £25 million.
Yeah, I've heard a few people getting excited by him. Look, I don't know too much about him. Is he
going to raise the levels?
I think so. I've heard that. He likes to get up and down. Yeah, look, I've heard he's quite good. I think he's a defensive mid. I thought when I first heard the name, I thought he was the guy that Frank had at Brentford, but I don't know. Clearly, he's not him. Yeah, I don't know. From looking at the stats, he doesn't seem like anyone who stands out particularly. But maybe they're seeing something I don't see.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I mean, it's a link that was brought out by Sebastian Vidal, and I'm hearing his name quite recently, quite a lot. And I don't know where he's come from, this Sebastian Vidal, but I don't know if he's
the journalist. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Sebastian Vidal just sounds like a reliable guy.
He does.
If he got a name like that, he's got a great name. But yeah, I don't know.
Now we're going to talk about Cuti Romero. Fabrizio Romano gave us a bit of an update. And he says it's going to be very difficult to pry Cuti Romero away from Tottenham this summer. Daniel Levy wants to keep the player at the club, and Thomas Frank sees the player as a crucial part of the squad, both technically and in terms of leadership. And look, if he does go and Sonny does go in the same summer, there is a clear void of leadership in the squad. We can all see that. We all know that. I feel like Spurs are going to dig their heels in with this deal for Cuti Romero. And I'm not sure if Atletico are going to be willing to go to the price that Spurs want.
I know. I agree with you. I think we're going to obviously make it difficult. We know that what an asset we have. We know how good he is. I just can't get away from the fact that he has 2 years left. And knowing Levy, he sold Carrick. I know it was years ago, but he sold Carrick because he had 2 years left and he refused to sign a deal. I think it was similar with Berbatov. He only had a couple of years left and he didn't want to sign. Like, there's been precedent, I think Modric as well. Like, there's been precedent for Levy selling players with this length of the contract left because they're not going to sign a new deal. Now, and obviously,
didn't do it with Kane.
Didn't do it with Kane. Kane was a different thing. But yeah, we didn't do it with Kane. I think when we didn't sell Kane, he had 3 years left. And then I think the following summer, I don't remember there was as serious interest in him as there was when that protracted summer.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is he let it go to 1 year to go.
Yeah. Yeah, fine. So maybe he'll do the same with Romero, knowing that next summer he can still get a significant fee. I wouldn't mind it. I just feel like if Romero wants to go and he's not going to sign a deal, I think maybe there will be some wiggle room with us and the transfer fee potentially. We know how tough a negotiator Levy is, and there is a good chance he might end up staying. But I think for that to happen as well, he needs to have a good conversation with Frank, and he needs to be like, we need a motivated Romero. You saw when Romero's mind starts wandering sometimes and he can be off his game, then it's not a Romero you even want around. You need someone who's completely focused. So Frank needs to be convinced that he's getting that Romero. Yeah. So he needs a good conversation with him. But if he does, even if Romero's not signing a contract, but he's happy to stay for another year, okay, fine, I'm happy with it. I just can't get away from the fact of this contract situation. I just find it highly unlikely to believe he will sign a new deal. And if he doesn't, I think Levy, knowing him, there might be some wiggle room on the price. I don't know about big, but look, the rumours are that Atletico only want to pay 38. Obviously, they're going to have to pay a lot more than that. But if we're demanding between 65 and 70, could Atletico get close to that 60 million? Maybe. And if they do, maybe we'll be willing to let them go.
I just don't know if they're going to do it. Like, even if there is a bit of wiggle room, which there always is with Spurs, I just don't feel like Atletico are going to come in with a bid that Levy's willing to accept. I just don't think it's going to happen. But look, we'll see what happens as the window progresses. And last but not least, we're going to talk about Sonny. And Fabrizio Romano says that there is a strong interest in Heung-min Son from clubs in Saudi Arabia who have a good relationship with his agent. The change in head coach at Spurs could see the South Korean change his mind over his future. He was almost certain to stay if Ange Postecoglou continued as head coach, but however, nothing has been decided as of yet.
It was interesting to hear him say that because a lot, obviously, the narrative is Ange plays Sonny wrong. He doesn't play him in the right position, and you would have thought maybe Son wouldn't mind Ange leaving. But obviously, they had a good relationship. We know that we broke the trophy drought, and obviously, he said, didn't he, in an interview after the win, he said, Ange is the one who broke the 17-year drought, and he's won something, and that means something, all this kind of stuff. So maybe it was the trophy drought that convinced him that he wants Ange to stay, or maybe it was just he had a great relationship with Ange anyway. The fact of the matter is, his goal, whatever you want to say about his struggles, his goal contribution tally in both seasons is fairly strong. What was it? 49 in 2 seasons, is it? Yeah, 49 over 2. Yeah, 27.
Exact number.
27 in his first season, and then 22 last season. Obviously went down, but still pretty good. Nearly 50 over 2 seasons. So it's not a bad tally for a guy of his age. Obviously, for his quality, probably you could definitely say he could be doing better for sure. But you look at most players in his position at his age, probably very few are getting those kind of tallies. So it's interesting if that's actually the case, but maybe it's just a case of, again, what my feeling is with Son is it just because there's all this change, is it just a time for him to experience something else and just have one more big experience at a big club before, he has to go to like an MLS or a Saudi and something? Maybe he feels like this is his last opportunity, and having won that trophy, this could be a good time. But again, I think, we'll see what these conversations with Frank come about. Maybe Frank can really convince him, look, you stay here. You can score loads of goals, and we can really be challenging for big things next season with you at the helm, and you're our captain. We need you, basically. And maybe that kind of conversation will convince him, okay, like, I'm still really needed here. Or is it a case of him just maybe checked out a bit? I don't see Son being that kind of character to be checked out. But after winning that trophy, maybe that's just, is he ready for another project, all that kind of stuff?
I don't think it's a case that he's checked out, but I think it's a case that he feels that it's probably a good time for him to move on. And if it doesn't happen and he comes back to pre-season and he's here against Burnley on the first game of the season, he'll be the same old Sonny, putting in 110% for the badge. Well, I don't doubt that, but I just feel like it's a more likely case that Son leaves this summer than, let's say, a Cristian Romero.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's definitely more avenues for that, for sure. I think we're probably going to be more open to selling him as well. So that obviously plays a massive factor in it. Obviously, nothing's decided. It's so hard to call what's going to happen because it's hard to envisage Tottenham without Son. A bit like similar to Kane, but it's hard to even visualise that. What a Tottenham without Son's going to look like. And I don't want to visualise it. I want him to stay, and I want him to keep playing and keep scoring goals for us. But all things do come to an end, and it might not be this summer, but we know it's coming soon. Yeah. So whether it's this summer, next summer, even if he signs an extension, it's going to be guaranteed in the next 2-3 years. Yeah. Even if he has an amazing season this season and smashes it, it's still going to be fairly soon. So we have to start getting used to it at some point. But I hope it's not this summer. But at the end of the day, if we want to sign a big attacking player, something has to give, and it might have to be Son as well.
It's true, but like I keep saying, I don't think we can get anyone in that is the same quality or better than Sonny this summer, and I think we'll be missing a trick not having Son in the squad next season, because I do think Frank can get a lot better out of him moving forward. But look, that is your Tottenham update. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below regarding all the news stories we've brought to you today. What are the chat saying? I think a lot of them were loving the Onyedika. Liberty, Mr. Money, welcome to Gold, welcome to the We Are Tottenham TV family. It's good to have you around, my friend. Let me just get all these off the screen for you, and then we can get into the next segment.
Have you read all the Super Chats? No.
I think they're old.
They're old. Oh, right, because they've come from a later time than it is now. I see.
Yeah. All right. Now it is time to get into our yearly segment, Transfer Window Predictions. Me and Sim have both done separate predictions, how we see, not how we want the transfer window to go, but how we think the transfer window is going to go. So we're channeling our inner Daniel Levy, and we're going to make a stab. I mean, look, it's pretty much next to impossible to get this right, but let's see where we go with it. And this is my ins. This is who I think that we're going to sign this summer. So I've gone for Semenyo for 60 million, Richard Rios from Palmeiras for 20 million, Kyle Walker-Peters to come in on free, and a Callum Wendo to come in for 30 million. So that's 110 million spend. So that's offset by the players I'm selling, which is Bissouma for 10 million, Richarlison for 25 million, Solomon 15 million, Ben Davis, just take 3 million for him, and Sonny 30 million fee to go out to probably
5
Saudi. So what this means is that we're one player oversubscribed for the European squad. So I'm envisaging that Archie Gray is the one that's going to make way for a Richard Rios to come in the league. So if we do make my transfer predictions, we're going to have a squad of Vicario Kinski Austin in goal, right back Porro, Kyle Walker-Peters, left back Udogie and Spence, and obviously Spence and Kyle Walker-Peters can cover both sides. We've got centre backs of Romero, Van der Ven, Danso, and Dragusin. Centre midfields of Bentancur, Rios, Gray, Sarr, and Berg. Well, obviously Gray won't be able to play in the Champions League. Attacking midfielders of Maddison and Decky. Wingers of Tell, Odegaard, Johnson, and Semenyo. Strikers of Solanke and Kalimwendo. So I feel like that still leaves us very light in the wingers, the winger department, and the quality decreases massively. To be honest, with Son going out and Semenyo coming in, I'm happy with Semenyo. I think he's a good player, but he's not of the same level of Son Heung-min, unfortunately. So I feel like we're weak in the winger department, and probably backup fullback as well with Kyle Walker-Peters coming in. So that's where we're at with my predictions. What any thoughts on my predictions?
It's not too dissimilar to mine, which we'll get into. I think, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Maybe you can get a bit more for Basuma than the 10, maybe something closer to what we got for Højbjerg.
We get 15 for Højbjerg.
I think it was 20 million euros, wasn't it? So 17 million. I think, yeah, whether obviously you've got Romero staying, which is fair. Yeah, I think the difficult one is obviously Sonny, which I was struggling with. Is he going to go? Is he not? But I'll get into my predictions as well. I think it's fairly, I mean, a week ago if we did this, I don't think we would put Kalimwendo in there. But yeah. I think he is a guy who just definitely makes sense, isn't he?
Yeah, 100%. And Rios as well, when we were looking into the data for him, it just seems like that's one that Frank and Levy would both love.
But it's whether, I mean, the reports are we want an experienced guy in there. Obviously, he's experienced at his level, but he hasn't played in Europe before. But
yeah,
maybe
25 years of age.
But maybe he can adapt really well. He's definitely an interesting prospect.
Yeah.
So
obviously, he's played international football as well for Colombia. So I'm 25 years of age. He's not like
he's
a
got
kid.
21 caps, I think he's got.
Yeah, he's not a kid though, is he? He's not like 19, 20.
No.
So I mean, he's a man. But look, let's look at your predictions, and we can.
So I've gone for Tottenham to have a big outlay, 159 million. I've gone for Kyle Walker-Peters on a free as well. I just can't see a summer we avoid this Kyle Walker-Peters thing. I think we're just going to have to do it unless there's some sort of creative way we can not, which we haven't thought of. But I think Kyle Walker-Peters on a free. I've gone for Tapsoba from Bayer Leverkusen, obviously highly linked with us when we signed Van der Ven 2 years ago. His stock then went up when Leverkusen went unbeaten that whole season, and then his stock's taken a bit of a dip this season in terms of he didn't have the best season. So maybe we're getting him in as well in a summer where there's a lot of change for Leverkusen. They're selling a lot of players. Obviously, they've sold Frimpong, they've sold Wirtz, there's the links with Enquiry. So maybe they'll be willing to part with Tapsoba. At the moment, Enquiry is still there. So I think a 45 million bid with Tapsoba, which is what we were linked to getting him 2 years ago, could be something we can look at, I think. And I think he'd be open to coming to the Premier League and replacing, which I think will be Romero, which we'll get into. But I think Tapsoba could be someone gettable. I think in midfield, Douglas Luiz, I think started 3 games for Juventus last season. So I think if don't fancy him and they're willing to let him go, and potentially, for a bit less than what they paid for him, because clearly, I don't know, something's going on there. Although they have changed their manager. So whether that changes things for him, we'll have to wait and see. But if they don't fancy him, I think Luiz could be a brilliant addition for us. It's, again, a profile, a good ball-playing central midfielder who has that defensive graft about him as well. But I think, first and foremost, it's a guy who can set the tempo with his passing range. And we know he's got a brilliant passing ability. Got a decent shot from range, but we need someone who can kind of set the tempo. So I think maybe test the waters with someone like Luiz. I think if they're willing to sell him, I think we should be jumping at the chance. I've gone for Semenyo for 55, maybe plus some add-ons, including that. But I think obviously they're saying 70. I think that's about his value, to be honest. But they have sold Kirkes, they're selling Kirkes, Hyson, potentially Zabriani as well. So whether that hikes the price up a bit for him. But I think 55 plus maybe 5 million add-ons I should have put. could get the deal done for Semenyo. I think Mbeumo, he's probably going to end up at United. Kudus, I think we're going to be priced out of him. I don't see us getting close to that. And then Eze, whether we want to pay, obviously, that big transfer release clause. I would love to, but I don't know. So I think that does leave Semenyo, who is the most realistic one. And then I've gone Callum Wendo, who obviously got 17 goals last season for Rennes in Ligue 1. Seems to be a very different kind of striker to Solanke and Richarlison profile-wise. Has a bit more pace about him, more ability to engineer his own shots rather than the strikers we have at the moment who kind of need the service. So I think at the moment, a £32 million bid could get it over the line. So I'm looking at that for our incomings.
159 million spend, and also you got to remember that we've also spent 35 million on Tel and I think 25 million on Danso this summer as well. So you got to take that into account of the spend. But yeah, let's see. I just can't see us signing Tapsoba, to be honest. As much as I'd love it, I mean, he'd be a great Romero replacement. He would, but I don't know. There just seems to be too much movement in Leverkusen. You think they're going to...
That's the point. There's a lot of movement. So maybe if they could do with a bit more money, get some signings. There's a lot of change.
They've lost more money. They've got quite a bit of money. They've just got 150 million in Verts.
Yeah, they've lost their manager. But the thing is, could Tapsoba be looking to leave, get out of the Bundesliga, try himself at a different league? I think there's a good chance.
Will Leverkusen let him leave?
I think
selling so many players.
I think if he wants to leave, I think they're the kind of club who would be not happy to, but maybe will be open to it if there's a good offer. And they're willing to let him go for 45 2 years ago. Maybe that's changed. But even if it's a bit more, maybe say 50, I don't think he's ungettable. I really don't. I think there's a world where you can convince Leverkusen and Tapsoba to come to Tottenham.
All right. Well, let's see your outgoings.
So my outgoings, similar to yours, Ben Davis for 3 million. I've gone for a bit of a higher fee for Basuma, 14 million. I do think as much...
Not 13, not 15, 14.
14. I've gone for 14 million, very specific. I just feel like we can extract a bit more than 10. But he's a good central midfielder in the Premier League, and I think teams will look at him, and I don't think... I don't think 14 is unrealistic. Richarlison for 30. If it is Everton, I think 30 million is a reasonable fee for a striker who we know can do well in the Premier League. He hasn't had a good injury record though, so that might hold against him. But Everton, obviously, he's a legend there, and they love him. And I think 30 million to get him back at Everton, I don't think is a crazy outlay. Solomon, great season in the Championship. His stock is quite high at the moment. Off the back of a good season at Leeds. Marseille as well, potentially interested. I was also reading yesterday, was it Leipzig? I think I read, potentially interested. So if there's a bit of a bidding war, I think getting close to around 20 million, 18 and a half I've gone, I think is a reasonable fee for him. Romero, I've put 65 on it. I don't think we'll get there. I think we'll probably want around 70. I don't think we'll get there. 65, I think... maybe 60 plus 5 million add-ons or something like that. I'm hope that if we do sell him, I'm hoping it's that kind of fee. Anything less than that, I guess, would be a bit of a disappointment. But I'm going for... I just can't get away from the fact he's not going to sign a contract. I think there's a good chance he leaves. And Son, there's not much I want him to leave. But again, I think I've got a feeling how he's talking, the fact that Frank didn't mention him in his interview as well. There's just a lot of little hints that maybe he's on his way out. Not in a way that we want him out, just that maybe he's feeling it's time to try something new after 10 years at Tottenham and having won that trophy, go out on a high. And I think it might just be that feeling where it's he feels like he just wants to try something else rather than a fact that he's not happy or anything like that. Sometimes it just comes to a natural conclusion and it just might be this summer. So I've gone for Son for 30 million. So I've gone us to recoup 160.5. So I've actually got us a profit of 1.5 million.
So after your transfer window, who are you making captain?
I am making captain maybe Decky, or maybe just keep Madison as captain. See what see if he can command the respect of the squad. Obviously, he's part of the captaincy, the leadership group. So maybe he already has that respect. So I wouldn't be mad at keeping Madison the captain.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't see Romero and Son both leaving in the same window. I don't think Spurs are going to let that happen. And I think Spurs are going to dig their heels in with Romero massively. and I don't think that 65 million bid will come from Atletico.
Well, do you think Atletico dig their heels in for how much, you think? What do you think their limit will be?
I think maybe 50 million euros.
Well, if it's 50 million, we don't let him go for that, I don't think.
Euros as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think Romero leaves this summer. Son, I think there's much more potential for it. I'll prefer to keep both of them. Look, with your one, if we were to sell Romero, bring in Taps over, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Obviously, I still think Romero's better than him. Douglas Luiz is a very interesting one. I think Douglas Luiz would be a really good fit for us in terms of in a Frank system. I think he was so good at Aston Villa, particularly in that last year, and he was a very consistent performer. So I'd be very interested to bring in Douglas Luiz.
And yeah, I just feel like as well, Juve, there's something not right there at the moment. So maybe they'd be willing to let him go. But maybe, as I said, new manager, maybe it changes things for him. So that could change it.
Yeah, but I think both the windows, though, that both of us were... I mean, mine's worse than yours in terms of, trying to rebuild the squad. But I think I'd be pretty disappointed with both of them. Yeah,
also, again, similar to your window, we are one oversubscribed. That would mean leaving Gray out.
Oh, you're leaving Gray out as well?
Yeah, me leaving Gray out. Which, again, is that even a realistic thing? Because is he actually going to do that? But look, to be fair... FA Cup, Carabao Cup, and Premier League.
There'll be a lot of minutes.
There's a lot of games there he'll be playing. Champions League, just that level above. But maybe he would have to make his peace with that. But maybe Frank wouldn't want to do that as well. We're kind of assuming things. But maybe Frank will want to keep him in the Champions League squad. So,
yeah, I mean, look, this is our prediction right now. Let us know in the comment section below whose predictions do you think are more realistic, and if I was to say what I would want, I mean, it's hard to say what you want as well as a Spurs fan going forward, just because the squad limitations. I mean, we're going over this so much, like how is it going to be even possible for Spurs to make a load of signings this summer that are going to massively kind of increase the quality of the squad? It's so hard to envisage how we're going to do that. And I think the transfer business this summer is going to be very underwhelming.
Yeah, it's hard to envisage it kind of ending the window with a squad that we're all delighted with and without any holes in the squad. I mean, you're looking at what we've ended with. We've got rid of Son and Sonoman, and we've brought in just Semenyo. So our winger options are Tell, Odebear, Semenyo, and Johnson, potentially Decky as well. So you look at that and you're thinking, I mean, on the face of it, you're thinking you definitely need more quality there. And then centre-backs, you only have 4. Which, look, to be fair, I mean, 4 should be enough if you're only going to play 4 at the back, that is. If he's looking at 3 at the back, then obviously it's not enough. And I think we've been burnt as well by the fact that we've gone into the season with 4 and then 3 of them have gone long-term injuries. So, we've just got PTSD from that, thinking 4 is not enough. But in theory, 4 should be enough for a whole season. If we don't get long-term injuries, then fullback, I mean, Kyle Walker-Peters being one of the fullbacks isn't great either. So all of a sudden, you're like, there's still quite a few gaps there. At least the midfield is pretty well stocked, you would say. That's probably one position you're fairly happy with, and striker position.
The way I assess both of our predictions, I feel like I would prefer your window. I'd prefer to see bringing in a Tapsover and Lewis and Douglas Luiz. That would be very exciting because they're both really good players. But I just feel like my one's more likely to I think my one's just a bit more realistic.
Well, I mean, I just don't know if... Look, I just can't... As I said, when it comes to Romero thing, you have him staying. I think it's probably more realistic he's leaving. But, I mean, I could look at it either way. I can understand the arguments for him staying as well, but I just can't get away from the fact of the contract situation. I just can't shake it. So I just think the likelihood is he'll probably leave. But obviously, if he stays, then our windows aren't too... The only difference of our windows is really just Luiz instead of Rios.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's probably going to be easier for Tottenham to sign a Rios than it is a Luiz, just because he's probably cheaper and on less wage, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think the big gap is just Romero and if whether he's staying or not, that's the big thing.
How much did Juventus sign Luiz for?
They signed him for like 50 million euros.
50 million. Just trying to see what...
If they want to sell it, they're going to have to take a hit.
He's on 160.
Is that euros?
Yeah, 160 euros.
Yeah, but you got to remember we're selling Son.
Yeah.
Potentially.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we can go to for sure.
Yeah, we got big. We should be up to 4 big wages. Same with
Juventus
Tapsoba.
have just got a new manager in this summer as well.
Yeah, I think they appointed him. I think the back end of last season. I think he had a few games already, but there was talk whether they were going to let him go even, but they decided to keep him on. Igor Tudor.
Yeah.
So he's going to be in charge for next season. And you're right. Look, and at the moment he's at the Club World Cup. I think he played one half of their first game. So whether, again, I don't think he'd be happy playing with only a half, but he only had 3 starts. But again, he was injured as well. Quite a bit of the season last season. So it wasn't just because he was unfancied, it was also because he had injuries. But I think still playing 3 times in your first season,
yeah, it's not great.
he's not going to be happy with that after a big move. So if they're willing to, if he has a conversation with the board or the manager, they're like, look, we're happy to move you on or whatever, I think we should be swooping in there.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, let us know whose do you think is more realistic. We've put in a poll. 60% says mine is more realistic to 40% was Sim.
Only 84
votes. Get voting, people.
Why is only 84? There's over 1,000 people in here. Over 1,000 people in the chat.
Well, as you say that, more people are voting for you.
There you go.
Now it's 41% going up and down. But yeah, I mean, I do think mine is fairly realistic with the way we know that Spurs like to do business.
Because it's more disappointing.
Yeah.
That sounds like Tottenham.
Yeah, I just feel like Douglas Luiz is just not a very Tottenham signing.
Who knows? Why not? Out of favour player.
Yeah. How old is he?
27. Also, that played into it as well. The talk is we want an experienced player in midfield, like a player who's got experience Champions League level, experience Premier League, and he has all that.
Yeah. I would love to see him through the door. I think he's a quality player, and I think he ticks a lot of boxes for us. I just don't know if we're going to do it. We'll have to wait and see.
Look, we don't know what's going to happen if any of these are going to do it. I don't know if any. Look, it's impossible to say. I'm just kind of thinking of fairly players who I think was ambitious, but also not unrealistic. That was kind of what I was going for.
People in the chat saying Douglas Luiz ain't going to leave his wife, who's also playing at Juventus.
I thought they split up.
Did they? I don't know.
That's what I heard. I'm not in with the Juventus tea at the moment. I've drunk all the tea there.
Who's his wife? Alicia Lehmann is his wife.
It's a footballer, isn't it? I heard they split. Did they not split up, or was it just a temporary break?
I don't know.
I heard something with the wife. I don't know. Look, I'm not in Louise's private life. If they're still going strong, then maybe he won't leave. I don't know.
But yeah,
but he's got to do his best with his career. If they don't want him at Juve, then he will leave. Even if his wife is.
Brian says that if either Ben or Sim's window happen, I'll kill myself. Very underwhelming.
Jesus.
Levy said we're going to.
Let's all calm down, people. Look, if we assign Tapsoba and Louise, there's no reason to be self-harming. Okay, there's absolutely it's not that bad. Not a bad window. No need for that.
What about my window?
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. There's never a good reason to do that kind of stuff. People, stay safe out there.
Yeah. But yeah, look, I think we'll leave it there. The 62%.
Cantab says we'll sign his wife for the women's team.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not?
Levy would love that, actually.
Double
Levy
signing.
Would absolutely love that. But yeah, hopefully we'll be back later on when more news breaks today. But I want to thank you all for joining us today. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.